Okay, welcome back. In this video, in the previous video I discussed opening moves, what I would recommend for opening moves that are doubles. In this video I'll be discussing opening moves that are not doubles, and I want to really keep my videos, I don't want to make them much longer than 20 minutes, so I'll be watching the time. If the explanation in this video comes to sort of anything much longer than 20 minutes, I'll then make the explanation of moves that are not doubles across two videos, because there is quite a bit of explanation to be made about opening rolls that are not doubles. So let's start with the high numbers. Let's start with a 6 and a 5. The standard play for a 6 and a 5 is 6 spots here, 5 spots there. That is the standard opening move for a 6 and a 5. Not a dream roll like a double 6, but still pretty good, because you've got one checker out of your opponent's quarter to a spot that where it can't be hit, and so yeah, that's pretty good. I'm very happy when I roll a 6 and a 5. I'm quite satisfied with that opening roll. Now, what about a 6 and a 4? Well, many people, and in fact the move I was taught when I first learned backgammon by many people is 6 and a 4. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you anchor this point here. Well, my problem with that is, you've basically buried these two checkers. That's called burying a checker. Now, burying checkers. In backgammon, you can't move backwards. So these two checkers now don't serve any other purpose than at the end of the game when you're trying to get all your checkers off the board. So these two checkers are rendered impotent. They're useless now. Well, the most key priming points are these three, not here. And you've used up one checker from here to play a 6 and a 4 there. So with your next roll, if you roll a 3 and a 1 or a 6 and a 1, well, you can't, or a 4 and a 2, you can't cover any of these key points here because your spare checker from here is gone. So why would you play a 6 and a 4 there? That's what we are taught as a standard move, which I utterly disagree with. You could go 6 and 4 and then hope to roll a 2 on your next roll and sort of cover that. But then your chances of rolling a 2, well, you got some chance of rolling a 2, but the chances aren't fantastic. But the other thing is, by doing that, you're giving yourself a fair chance. You can get hit and covered with a 6 and a 1 here, or hit and covered with a 3 and a 1 there. So the chances of getting hit with these two checkers are not significant, but there is a chance. But remember, with a 6 and a 5, you go 6 and 5. So what I would recommend with a 6 and a 4 would be to run with this checker, go 6 and 4. Now, it's not as good as a 6 and a 5, but the chances of getting hit there are pretty remote. Your opponent has to roll a double 2. Excuse me. Also, if your opponent rolls a double 5, well, he'd be silly to hit you here, because if he hits you here, you can easily get back on the board, but he's buried these two checkers by putting them there. So he would not be smart to hit you there with a double 5. So really, he can only hit you there with a double 2, and the chances of rolling a double 2 are not that much. So yeah, with a 6 and a 4, that's the move I would recommend, to run with that checker. Similarly with a 6 and a 3, again, you could play a 6 here and a 3 there and hope to roll a 3 on your next roll and cover that. But it's perfectly harmless to go 1, 2, 3 and just run with that checker with a 6 and a 3, and 6 and a 2, and I hate to repeat myself, but yeah, you could go 6 and 2 there and hope to roll a 4 on your next roll and cover that. But once again, 6 and 2, perfectly harmless there. I mean, with a 6 and a 3, he'd have to roll a double 3 to hit you. With a 6 and a 2, he'd have to roll a double 4 to hit you. So, yeah, those are pretty good moves for 6 and 4, 6 and 3, 6 and 2. Really, you can just run with that checker and not much chance of getting hit. And you've got that checker fairly close to these checkers here. You know, maybe you can cover later. You know, maybe you can sort of come onto this point a bit later or come here, whatever. So yeah, those are the moves I'd recommend for the 6s. And of course, a 6 and a 1, the standard play for a 6 and a 1 is to play a 6 here and a 1 there and anchor off a very key priming point here. So that's your standard play with a 6 and a 1. So what about the 5s? Well, 5 and a 4, I would play a 5 and a 4. I'd play a 5 here. Oh, for goodness sake. Again, people give you bad advice. They say, play the 4 there. They'll give you an opportunity to then with your next roll, prime here. Bad move. Again, you are giving a free hit to your opponent. I mean, with these free hits, it's like, the analogy I use is like a batsman kind of stepping away from the stumps and saying to the bowler, well, if you hit my stumps, you can get me out. But let's see if you can hit the stumps. And the bowler might not be able to hit the stumps, but then again, he might be able to. So you wouldn't step away from your stumps and give the bowler a free hit. So why would you do the same thing in backgammon and just give your opponent a free hit here? And you're not necessarily going to be able to use that checker to prime off somewhere here. I mean, you don't want to leave yourself exposed near your own quarter. So I would not recommend that as a 5 and a 4 by any stretch of the imagination. I would move 5 here because now, well, and I'd move the 4 there. See, the advantage of having an extra checker here is because if you roll a 3 and a 1, and then a 6 and a 1 straight away, well, with a 3 and a 1 you've covered that priming point, a very key priming point here. Then if you roll a 6 and a 1 straight away, you've still got a spare checker here, so you can then cover this point here. So it's very advantageous to actually have a spare checker here, as in with a 5 and a 4, where you move 5 here with a spare checker and then 4 spots there. What about a 5 and a 3? Well, again, the standard move I was taught when I first learned backgammon, and a tremendous percentage of people play this, just like the 6 and a 4 when they anchor off here, they will play 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here and 3 there. Well, you haven't anchored any priming points here. These are the 3 priming points, remember. So that's not as bad as burying a checker with a 6 and a 4, but you've effectively buried these 2 checkers here. I mean, what if you roll a 3 and a 1 or a 6 and a 1 on your next roll? You haven't got a spare checker here anymore. So why would you play that with a 5 and a 3? So again, just like the 5 and a 4, I would go 5, 1, 2, 3 here. That's what I do. It's just, I consider it useless to anchor off this point here. With a 5 and a 2, you could go 5 and 2. I would not recommend it at all. That's called when you get too many checkers on one point, it's called the candlestick. Useless to have this. You've already got 5 checkers here anyway. Why would you want a 6-1 there? So that's what I mean. You would not play 5 and a 2 there. You'd play 5 and a 2 here. And a 5 and a 1, well, again, really the standard opening play I would play is play 5 there, where you put a spare checker here and then a 1 here. That's what I would recommend for a 5 and a 1. Incidentally, as I discussed a moment ago, like imagine your opponent rolls a 2 and a 1 and you roll a double 5. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Imagine if your opponent rolls a roll where he moves these 2 checkers here, this checker here and another checker somewhere else. If you roll a double 5, and I discussed this before, you would not hit here, because that checker can easily get back on the board here, and you've buried these 2 pieces here. So, if your opponent rolls a 2 and a 1 on his first move, and then you roll a 6 and a 4, you might get excited and say, wow, look at this, I can hit an anchor. Yeah, but then it's easy for your opponent to get back on the board with the next move, and you've buried these 2 checkers, just like the case of hitting with double 5. And again, with the same example of a 5 and 3, I mean, if your opponent rolls a 2 and a 1, right? So there's 2 and a 1, and you roll a 5 and 3, you might think, oh beauty, I can hit an anchor with a 5 and a 3, but just like with a 6 and a 4, hitting and anchoring is useless because it's easy for him to get back on the board again. And again, you've kind of semi-buried these 2 checkers. So if with a 5 and a 3 and a 6 or a 6 and a 4 you can hit an anchor, don't be excited about that, because you've hit an anchor, he gets back on the board, and like I said, if you roll a 3 and a 1 with your next roll, or a 6 and 1, you can't anchor anymore because that checker's gone from here. You've only got 2 checkers here. So even with a hit and anchor, I would not recommend covering these 2 points with a 6 or a 4 or a 5 and a 3, even if you can hit an anchor. Now, what about the 4s? Well, with a 4 and a 3, the standard move I would recommend for a 4 and a 3 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, because you've kind of advanced these 2 checkers here, and hopefully you can hope for a 3 and a 2 where you can cover, or you can anchor off here, or if you're lucky enough to get a roll where you can move one of these 2 checkers here with your next roll, well, again, that's pretty good. You're increasing your chances of being able to either anchor this point here or running with one of the checkers. Look, again, goodness me, people recommend that you play a 4 and a 3 here. My friends have recommended this. I've seen this videos on YouTube. Again, like the batsman stepping away from the stumps and giving the bowler a free hit. You're giving a free hit to your opponent here, and really it's 2 different rolls of the dice where you're leaving 2 checkers exposed here instead of 1. I mean, the argument is, yeah, if you roll a 1 you can anchor here, whatever, or you can anchor one of these, or if you don't roll a 1, if you roll something else where you can, say you roll a 1, 2, 3, 4 and a 1, you can anchor here, but that check is still exposed. So really, you as I said before, you don't want to leave checkers exposed right near your own quarter. That is just ridiculous behaviour. I can't understand why people play like that. I wouldn't recommend it. 4 and a 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 and a 2, that's a standard move there. You've covered a key priming point here. So that's what you would play with a 4 and a 2. 4 and a 1, you could play 4 and 1 there. I'm not too keen on that, because with a 4 and a 1, I would play that as an opening move. So there's a spare checker there to have more opportunities to anchor these 3 points here. So that's what I'd play with a 4 and a 1. A 3 and a 1, the standard move for a 3 and a 1 is 3 and 1. You've anchored a key priming point here. So that's standard play for a 3 and a 1. A 3 and a 2, again, just like the 4 and 1, you could go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then hope for a 4 and a 3, because if you get a 4 and a 3 on the next move, you can anchor this point here, or again, with a 3 and 2, you can, if you can't anchor there, you've given these two checkers a better chance of running, maybe to this point here, but with the 3 and a 2, again, just like the 4 and 1, I would recommend that, because again, it leaves a spare checker there. Plus, it's only your opening move. You've got plenty of time to try and run with these two pieces in your next move, or move after. You know, you're not trapped in there yet. So 3 and a 2, again, I would recommend that move here. 2 and a 1, standard move for a 2 and a 1 is this. 2 and a 1 is a pretty useless roll. Again, 2 and a 1 is only useful if you have actually, say, let's say if you've got a bit of ammunition here, for example, and you roll a 2 and a 1, then you can anchor a major priming point here. That's when a 2 and a 1 becomes useful. Otherwise, like a double 5, I have rarely found a 2 and a 1 to be a good roll. It's most of the time it's a pretty bad roll. So 2 and a 1 standard, I would play there. Again, people recommend, you know, move 1 there and 2 there. You know, thank you for giving a free hit to your opponent close to your own quarter. It's, you know, you get hit, you have to go all the way back there. You've got 3 checkers there instead of 2. You know, don't let people talk you into believing their recommendations of moves where you leave checkers exposed here. It's just not right. Just 2 and a 1, I would recommend that as a standard move for a 2 and a 1. Anyhow, if you have any other recommendations, or you want to discuss any moves further in this or any other videos, please feel free to leave comments, and I'm happy to discuss them with you further. I hope you found these 2 videos on opening moves useful, and so until the next video, thanks for watching.